Hey there guys, welcome back to the channel. Last time we were working on a project. It was sending response data from an API to MongoDB. So in this one, we're going to be showing how to render that information from our database to the front end using React.js. So in this one, we're not only going to be rendering it to the front end, we're going to be adding sort and filter to our data. So let's get started. So as you can see, we have a server set up over here. So what we want to do actually is let's split this terminal. Let's go back, cd, and clear. And now let's create npx create React app, and it's going to be called client. Okay, so what we're doing right now is we're just creating a client side folder with our React dependencies within it. So it's going to take a couple of seconds, maybe a minute to finish up. So what we want to do while that's happening is let's just minimize this and go get Tailwind. So let's go Tailwind CSS, get started, and then let's just grab this to install. So yep, we're all set now. So let's go right to cd client, and then let's just put that in there. Clear. Okay, and now let's see. We just want to grab this input CSS and place it right within index.css. Let's put that in there. And yep, that's pretty much it. Oh, so we want to grab this also, configure, and go right back in that package and Tailwind configure. And we just want to add JSX to it. Cool. So we're all done with this. Let's maximize this again. And now if we say clear npm run start, let's see, there we go. So we're all set. Let's just clean up some stuff here. We don't want this git. Let's see. We don't want app.css, app test. We want to take that out. We don't need the logo. We don't need this. And we don't need the setup test. So index.js, we just got to take this out, that out. Index.css we need, and we could just take this part out. And everything in the header. You can also take this out. We don't need the class name app. Cool. So now, if we do this, let's come over here. Let's just split our screen right now so we can see everything going on. Cool. So now we have, awesome. So now we have our client and our server open. So what we want to do is create, let's go back to the server real quickly and our route. Now for our route, we want to create a get, another get, and this would be for the database. And we want to say /database, and let's just keep this way right now. So now we can go to the controller, the news controller, and over here, let's just bring this up. We're going to do basically the same thing we have here. And this one's going to say exports.database is equal to asynchronous request response. Cool. And we're going to say try. Oh, let's just use IntelliSense. So let's say try catch. And within the try, we're going to be getting the database data basically. So we're going to have it as a wait, because remember, we're waiting a promise. And we're going to say news.find. So if you remember, this news is pertaining to the news model. So our model here, the exports news. So we're going to say news.find. And what we're looking for is everything. So we're just going to leave that as news.find. So we're trying to find everything within this news model, within our database. So our database is going to be this, and we're going to say res.send database. So everything within our database we're going to send. So we can also console log that so we can see what it is before. So let's do that. And then for catch, it's going to be our boilerplate console.log error. Cool. So now we just got to go back to, let's close all this out so it's not all jam-packed over here. Browse. Cool. And then here we're just going to put database. Is that what we called it? Import database. Exports database. Let's do that again because I don't know what exported actually. So let's do that again. So database, and it's going to be this one. Cool. So you're going to have two here, the news and the database, or whatever constant you called it. So now that we have that, if we come over here and open up localhost 5000/API, because that's what this is. That's what this route is /API/ database, and we send that. As you can see, everything we have in our database is console logged. Remember, we had 15 items in our database, so that's this right here. Awesome. So this is pretty much it for our backend. We don't really need to do much with it anymore. So let's just close out of this, and now we can focus on our front end. So in our front end, we're going to create a new folder, and this folder is going to be called context or content. It's called contents.jsx. Actually, we're just going to create a file, not a folder. So new file. Actually, let's create a new folder. So we're going to create a new folder, and it's going to be called components. And then within components, we're going to create content.jsx. Cool. And the RAFCE to give us our arrow function. Cool. And now what we want to do is go into our source and say app.js, and we just want to come over and get, oh, this needs to be capitalized, sorry. So let's go back in there and let's do this. Cool. So now we can say content. Okay, something's wrong somewhere. Let's see. Let's go back to content. So this shouldn't be taking this long. We're just gonna do it over and say, oh, okay, that's the mistake. So within source, we're making content. Sorry, we're making components. Component, and then new file let's not make the same mistake. Content.jsx. Cool. RAFCE. And now we can come over here and say content. Cool. And there we go. So that took a little longer than it was supposed to. Now within content, what we want to do is use useState. So we're going to say const data and set data is equal to useState, and we're going to make it an array of objects. And now we're going to say const yeah, let's just leave it as this first, so that way it's easier to explain going forward. So we can do, let's import useState. Cool. And now we're gonna go down here and use useEffect because we want our data to load up once we once we open the page. So we're gonna do that. Give it a dependency array, an empty dependency array, and then down here we're gonna get the data. So we're gonna say const fetch data is equal to async and an arrow function, and we're gonna say const def. Let's just call it data is equal to await axios.get. So I believe we have to install Axios. npm install Axios. Awesome. So .get, and remember, we're getting our information from http localhost 5000 slash, I believe it was API slash database, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, so we're just going to do that. And now we're going to say set data right here to data.data. So we got to import Axios from. Cool. So now let's actually console log this. Nah. Oh, console.log data. So let's shove fetch data in here. Awesome. So if we come over here and we go to the console, as you can see, we have 15 items, which is exactly how many we had over here in our server. We saved 15 items in our database. So everything looks good so far. So now, before let's just populate this on the website, on this website first, on this empty web page first. So I'm gonna skip ahead because I'm gonna add some CSS to it, which you can copy later. But I know a lot of people don't like seeing the CSS being done like live or here. They're just here for the logic. So let's put the CSS in, and then I'll just come right back to it. Okay, so as you guys can see, I only put in let's do this. I only put in this part of the CSS. That's because I just ended up putting everything else over here. So that way we just call from it. Well, we just copy and paste as we please from the CSS. So this is all the CSS I need is within this file. So that way it's just easier to copy and paste the CSS rather than having to rewrite it. So let's keep going. So right now we have we know what our data is because we're console logging it. So let's just comment that out so we don't keep doing that. And now we can take that data. So if there's data, then we can map through it, and we're just going to be using database DB as the constant, and we can do that. And when we map through it, we're going to be saying return. And when we return, we want to give it a div, and we want to say database. Wait, did I say div or div? Cool. So now we want to say image source is equal to, so we're just going to use this here, database dot URL to image, and let's see. Yep, so there we go. There we have it. Everything populated onto the screen. So it should be 15 items as long as they're, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So I believe one of them probably does not have an image in the database. So we're just going to call it we're gonna say database dot title. So that way, even if it's not there, we at least know there's a title that pertains to it. Or I could just account it wrong, either or. So, but now for the CSS for this, I'm just gonna go pick this up and just do this. And then our CSS here, just plug that in and voila. So now it has the animation and everything. So if I make this bigger, as you can see, it's this is the one I believe doesn't have an image. So, well, this is the whole image, I guess, this little logo here. But as you can see, this is everything in there. So although this is like this, there are two things we're missing. So remember I said we should be able to filter it, meaning if I'm looking for, okay, let's do one more thing before we even get into that. So image, and then let's give it a title underneath. So h1, and we're just going to call it database.title. Cool. So this is going to be the title, and let's just give it a class name text center. Cool. So that's it right there. So we're just going to leave it as this for right now. And let's do one more thing. So P, and we're going to call this content. So database.content. And we're going to say class name. And although this doesn't look very like cool right now because it has all this in there, there's a reason why I'm doing this. So this isn't for like aesthetic purposes. I just want to, let's do this also. Yeah, let's do this right for right now. This isn't a proper way to do things, but I'm just doing this right now. You guys can set up your CSS however. There's a reason why I'm doing this. So now we want to be able to filter this, right? So let's build a filter form up here. So if I come over here, before we map through anything, we're first going to want to filter. So it just makes our data more efficient. So we want to say, if there's data, right, we want to filter, and we're going to call this database also. Cool. So now we don't have to put this data anymore. We can just say .map. Cool. So what we want to do now is say const, and we want to create something called query and set query. And this is going to be equal to useState, and it's going to be a string, and everything will make sense in a second. So yeah, let's do that first. So what we want to do before all of this actually is no, let's come back up here. So let's come up to return and do this and this. Actually, let's give it a div, and let's give this a div, and then say class name. We're just going to keep that empty for right now actually. And for our within our div, we're going to say form, and for our form we're going to say input class name, background transparent, focus outline, border black, and what else? Actually, we don't want an outline, so focus outline none, border black, text black, and that should be it. So now we can just close this and do this. Cool. Now let's see if we can find it. Yep, there it is. So border black, and border bottom. Let's do that. Okay, cool. As you can see, it's right there. So now we can see it. And now we want to say for our input, we want to say value is equal to query. And remember, query is a string. So this value pertains to, so whatever we type in here is going to represent this query state. So value is query. And now we want to say the type is going to be text. And the text is going to be black. Why am I blanking on how to put the black colored text? Let's see. Oh, okay. So let's, yeah, text black. We already have this. So if I said A, B, okay, something's wrong somewhere. Input, blah, blah, blah. Value is query, type is text. Okay, let's say placeholder first is equal to search. Just so we can see something in there. Okay, cool. So we can see something in there, and the value is not going to work yet. So now we can put an unchange on it. So an unchange. There it is. And for our unchange, we're going to say E, and then we're going to say set query, and it's going to be e.target.value. Cool. So now, there you go. So we have this so far, and this is just building the form out at this point. So what we want to do now is within this filter, all right, we want to be able to filter all our results from the database. So within this filter, we want to say if query, meaning whatever we type in here, like whatever our query is in here, the string in here, is equal to nothing, an empty string. So if there's an empty string, meaning there's nothing in here, we want to say return true. See, we want to return everything from the database. We want to return every single thing from the database. However, if it's not an empty string, what we want to say is return, and we're going to say database dot title to lowercase. So we want to change everything to lowercase, and we want to say includes the query. So we want to include whatever it is we typed in here, includes query. Cool. So this is saying if there's a query and it's equal to nothing, so it's equal to an empty string, so there's nothing in there. Let's just say empty string, not nothing. So it's equal to an empty string, and this is an empty string. Remember, this search right here is just a placeholder. So it's just a placeholder saying search. So if this input form is empty, I mean, if this input form has no string, an empty string in there, we want to return true, meaning we want to return this everything, this database. We want to return everything within data, which is this database. And now, if it's not an empty string, that's what this else is. Else, if it's not an empty string, we want to return database. And the reason why there's a question mark is just to handle errors just in case there was something wrong with the data in the database. Or let's say title, not every single one of them had a title. It won't just break because there's no title. Let's say every single one of them had no title. That way we just wouldn't have some kind of error. So if there's a title, then we want to take the title to lowercase within our search. So we're gonna say includes query. And now we're gonna say or if the database dot author dot to lowercase that includes query. Okay. Yes. So we're gonna. So if it says database dot author dot lowercase that includes query. So meaning if if we type something in here, we want to search within title or the author. So we're searching within these two parameters, the title and the author. We want to search the title and the author to see if anything we typed in there correlates to what is in our title field and our author field. But that's not it. We also want to search um our title, author, and we also want to search content. So we're gonna say if there's a basically if the database holds content, we want to search the content to lowercase also dot includes query. There we go. So now let's see if it works. So let's search our title first. So let's see Sony net. Whoa. Okay, so something broke. Let's make sure we have everything correctly put in there. Okay, let's do this. Okay, now let's see. Okay, cool. So that fixed it. So I guess there's an error there somewhere. Okay, cool. So now we can say, oh, it's to lowercase. So as you can see, if I make this capitalized, nothing shows because I've already said all these parameters, meaning content, author, title, should all be to lowercase. So now, if we go back to what I said earlier, let's search these titles. So as you can see, let's say Sony. Next, as you can see, this part is show. So this part is filtered out, meaning this is the only thing that pertains to this. So as you can see, this also says Sony. Uh, uh, so if I say Sony is set, as you can see, the content also shows. Now, who is the? Let's see if we can find an author here for anything. So this author is Jesse Lennox. So if we come over here and we just type in Jesse, oh, you got to be lowercase, Jessel, you got to be lowercase, Le, and then Ox. As you can see, this data comes up, and but you can see there's the author's name is not populated here. However, it's in the database. So if you look here and see this Jesse Lennox, the title says I missed the golden age of oddball. And if you look over here, that's exactly what this says. So we know that our filter works perfectly. So now what else? So now let's say I want to add in a sort feature over here, right? So if I wanted to be able to sort through alphabetically, so A through Z, Z to A, and the date, right? So what would I do? So I would have to come, first of all, we would have to build out our sort feature. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's come right after form, and we're gonna justify it. So we can come here. So let's say, okay, I got an idea. So let's say with full height full here, right? And this pertains to this. And then let's give this here its own div. Let's throw this form within it. And let's do another div here. Cool. So for this parent div, let's give it, let's come over here and let's just use this. We're going to say this. I'm going to throw it right back in there as class name, of course. And let's throw it in here. Cool. So as you can see, that moved, but it's gonna change once we put this part in. So what we want to do now is say div, then we want to give it a class name of like P3. Yeah. And then we want to say label, and we're gonna call it sort. Cool. And let's just call it class name P2. Cool. And label is going to be sort. And within this label, we're going to have a select option. Select. Cool. And within select, we're going to have a bunch of options. So let's say A through Z, Z through A, and date. So this is going to be A through Z. This is going to be Z through A. And this is going to be date. Cool. So as you can see, we have A through Z, we have Z through A, we have the date. So of course, date's going to be whichever one is newer. The newer article is going to be at the top. Everything else is going to be at the bottom. But we're also going to have just the default. So let's make that. Let's change this to cool. So we have the default, which is just going to be this. It's just whatever's in the database from number 1 through 15. Okay, so now what we want to do is create a state for this. So we're going to create a state called sort and set sort. And it's going to be equal to useState. And it's going to be a string. So what we're going to do with this is go into our select right here on change. So anytime there's a change, we're going to say E. Where's E? So E. And for E, we're going to say set, what was it called? Set sort. Set sort, because we're, okay, so set sort E dot target dot value. Where did I do wrong? So E on change. What did I do wrong? So let's see. Arrow function, set sort. Oh, there it is. Cool. Okay, so now we have an event listener. So with this event listener, we're saying anytime we change anytime the state is changed, it's going to pertain to basically sort. So anytime there's a change, the set sort picks up on that change, and then that's what we're going to be using as sort here. So we have options, option, option. So that's fine. So now what we want to do is say we just want to write some logic for it, and we're going to go away from filter. So we're going to move away from filter. So you always want to have filter first because it makes everything more efficient, because you want to be able to filter through the data first before you sort it. So let's say you only need 5 pieces of 5 articles within the data that you're looking for. So you want to be able to filter through those 5 articles before you sort it. You don't want to sort it and then filter through it. So it just makes things a lot more efficient. So now dot sort, which is a method. So dot sort, and within sort, we're going to have an A and a B parameter. So we want to do this. It's going to be an arrow function. And now we're going to say if sort, which is this sort right here, and remember there's an event listener associated to it. So if sort is equal to default, and remember we kind of got to spell it the same way here, is equal to default. Cool. Awesome. And then we want to return 0, meaning where there's no change. So now we're going to say if what's the parameter here? So we're going to say sort is equal to A through Z. Then we want to say if A dot title. So remember, we have 3 parameters we're working with here. We have title, we have author, and we have content. So we want to say if A, which is this A, dot title is less than B dot title, then we want to return -1. So if let's go over here and see if that worked. So as you can see, 3 comes before C. So this means if from A to Z, this comes in alphabetically from A to Z. So ascending order, I believe. So from the highest letter, I guess. So 3 numeric 3 comes before C, and then C comes before D. So the logic behind this is if sort, which is the sort, is equal to A through Z, which is this option we have here, A through Z. Remember, we already did the default. Now it's equal to A through Z. The logic that we're going to be using in order to make sure this returns properly is if A is, we remember we gave it 2 perimeters. So if this A dot title, which pertains to the title that we gave it in the title field in the database. So title is less than B dot title, we're going to return -1. So we're going to say, let's say A dot title is the number 5 and B dot title is the number 6. We're going to return -1. So we're going to return it in ascending order from the smallest to the largest. But now if A dot title is greater than B dot title, we're gonna say return 1. So that way, yeah, so if A dot title is greater than B dot title, then we're returning 1. And then we're gonna say return 0 to end it all. So now if I go back to default, it shows me everything in my default. If I do this, it does that. So for this pertains to if we're using the title to do that. So let's see, Z through A, we're using the title. So remember, we just chose to use the title for this sort method. So for this sort, we're sorting with the title. So if if we're sorting from A through Z, we're gonna say return 0. If we're sorting from A through Z and we have A title is greater than B title, we're returning -1, meaning it's from the smallest to the greatest. However, if A title is greater than B title, we're returning 1. So this pertains to Z to A. So we're returning 1. If not, we just return 0. So that's that for our sorting. So for the date, as you can see, we've not done the date yet. So for the date, it's going to be a little different. So we're going to come down here and we're going to say if sort is equal to date. Do I have it capitalized? Yeah, date. Then we're going to say return date dot parse. And what parse is doing is parsing a string containing a date and returning it in milliseconds. So whatever the date is, we're going to return it in milliseconds, and we're going to use that date to compare. So we're going to say date.parse b dot published at, where is it? Published at. And because we're using published at, because that's what we save the data as here in the database. So published at, and we're gonna say minus date dot parse. And remember, it's changing it to milliseconds and it's subtracting both numbers. So with our brains, we can't do that in milliseconds because that's just too many numbers. But being a technological device like a computer, it can do that. So this would be a dot published at. Awesome. Cool. So let's see. So date. Let's go back to date. So I'm guessing this is the earliest because this is default. This is A through Z, Z through A. Let's go back to default. Let's go back to date. So everything. So we have PlayStation, this one, and Spider-Man. So let's go to default. We have PlayStation, this, and this. So if I go back to date, as you can see, everything changes. So just like that, we have our date. We have from A through Z, Z through A, and our date, and we have the default. So we are all set. So that's it for that. So now if I make this bigger, as you can see, because of the CSS we put in, it's done. So let's see if this works. So let's pick. Actually, this looks annoying to me. So let's just say class name width is full. Height, we're gonna give it a height of 30. Height. Awesome. So now everything is uniform. I like that better. So and this input form, let's give it a padding because it's just way off. Is it gonna be form? Let's see. Last name P3. Oh, cancel. Yep, that's fine. So we have this. Now if I say let's go here. Official PlayStation. Actually, let's just search PlayStation here. Right. Well, technically everything's PlayStation. So it doesn't really do much. May. Let's say May. Right. Okay. So that evens it out. So if I say May and I do this, as you can see, it still sorts through it. It sorts through this, and it sorts through the date. So that is pretty much it for our project. We're all set. That is how you filter through data and you sort through data. We don't need this. Don't save. Yep, so that's pretty much it. So let me know what you guys think of the project. If you want to see like a full application with it, let me know. I can basically add a hero component and a nav bar and things like that just to make it a better looking project. But this is pretty much like what this is pretty much just querying a database from the front end using MongoDB and an API. So everything we need done is pretty much done this way. Let me know what you guys think. If you have any questions, just put in the comment section. If you like the video, you could just let me know in the comment section. And you could just, if you don't mind, go ahead and like the video and subscribing. It lets me know that this is reaching people and they're liking the content, and it lets me know I should make more of these. Uh, any feedback is appreciated, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.